Hello and welcome to another basketball podcast. I'm your host, Justin Coben, and I'm joined by my co-host, Marco Amendola, and Matt Lafferty, appearing on the pod for the second time. Today, we're giving our over-under predictions for the Eastern Conference. Before we get going, please hit like and subscribe to our podcast. We're at 20 subscribers now. Please help us get to our next milestone of 50. We'll be doing some basketball card giveaways for our milestones in the future, so please stay tuned for that. So with all that being said, Marco, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. I'm having a good night. You know, I had my Boston Social League match. Typical Wednesday night. My team, the Red Team's in first place, so I'm kind of riding that high right now. Ready to talk some hoops. And yeah, maybe we can talk about over-under people I made cry in this league. Because I'm good. How are you? How are you, Laugh?
I'm doing very well. Happy to be on for a second time, and looking forward to getting into it.
Yeah, it's been a huge day for Marco and I because one of our fantasy leagues just opened up like the draft order and the trading today. So I've been wheeling and dealing. I already acquired one share of Scoot Henderson today, so I'm very happy about myself. If you guys are ready, we can just jump right in. So we're going to be taking the over-under totals from FanDuel for each team in the Eastern Conference, starting from the team with the highest over-under. That'll be the Boston Celtics, and we're going to be moving all the way down the list eventually to the Brooklyn Nets. We also have these little over-unders, if you guys can show yours to the viewers, and we're going to be giving our live predictions after one of us reads which team comes next. If you guys are listening on Spotify, I'm going to say you're going to want to jump over to our YouTube channel because we have we're doing signs here and you can see like which direction we go. We might not always mention if we're on the over under side. So just for clarity purposes, you might want to watch this video specifically on YouTube. We're also going to do a recap episode later in the future after the season, and we're going to see how wrong we all were. So I'll just start it off here. We got the Boston Celtics. Their over-under total is at 58.5 on FanDuel for next season. Very high total. On three, we're all going to show and say our total, our over or under. Ready? 3, 2, 1.
Ooh, I'm going under.
I'm going under as well.
Fake fans.
Marco, so you're over on the Celtics. Why are you over?
So we know they had 64 wins last year. The year before, not that it matters because it's a completely different team, but the year before they had 57 wins. They were the 2 seed. So for each of these teams, as an exercise, I tried to have pros and cons of both. Like I wanted to have a solid argument. So we know KP is going to be out for a while. We know the East. Mm-hmm. Probably better all around. A lot of teams made moves that you would think will make them better. Last year, the Celtics only lost 4 games at home, and I went through their schedule. 8 of their losses out of their 18 were by 5 points or less. So they had a lot of tight losses. And I believe in their role players. I believe in Keita. I believe in Tillman. I don't know how much their rookies are going to play, but I think Baylor's a real player. I think Anton Watson is a real player. He probably won't play a lot, but if you go to our hot takes, my hot take for the Celtics was that Derek White's going to be an all-star. So I think they're going to come together. They know how to win without KP. And I think the team as a whole, we saw how they came together and kind of handled avoiding the noise. They got a lot of negative attention last year throughout their championship run. I think they know the goal is multiple rings, and I think they're a good regular season team, and they can kind of take a few steps back and still be over that 50. I mean, 58.5 is a lot, to be fair. Like it is pretty much assuming they're going to be the 1 seed again, but I believe in them.
Yeah. And Laugh, why were you on the underside of the Celtics line?
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with anything Marco said. I think it's a really high number, and with KP
Hmm.
out, we have to rely on Horford really heavily at the beginning of the season after a long playoff run, long season, a lot of minutes on him last year. I'm just afraid that we might not have the depth behind him. Like, I love Luke Cornett as a regular season backup. Clearly wasn't utilized the same way in the playoffs, but I do think he provides, a good lift for us. But without KP, we are a different team. We saw that in the games without KP in the playoffs, and we still did well, obviously. But yeah, I think that's the big piece. I do like some of the depth pieces we have, but I also think, to your point, Marco, the East did get way better. So I think it'd be pretty shocking to me if any East team came out over like 55, 60 wins, to be
Yeah.
honest. So that's kind of where I'm at. I just think it's going to level out a little bit more as the East has gotten better. So that's where I'm at.
I agree with Laugh more than I do Marco. I'm a Celtics fan too, but at the end of the day, I think KP's injury is going to be hard for them to kind of overcome at the beginning of the season. We have Al, who's the backup, who's older now. They're going to be wanting to rest him as much as possible. Tatum, Brown, or not Brown, Tatum, Derek White, and Drew Holiday all play for the Olympic team, and they played through the finals as well. So they've just been playing nonstop, tons and tons of minutes. So I'm assuming that Missoula is going to kind of want to coast to the playoffs with these guys, rest them as much as physically possible after what was like a team that was so driven to win a championship last year. I feel like there's no harm in being the 3 seed, a 1 seed with 54, 55 wins. I just don't see us getting to that same level as last year. I would settle in around 55, 54 wins for the Celtics, and I think that's very respectable and good enough for them.
It's probably a bold pick to say. Oh, I mean that's a respect that line is respecting the Celtics.
Yeah, and I think you're fair as a Celtics fan to pick that, and I want them to go over too. But we'll see. I think we can move on to the next team, the New York Knicks, whose over under total is set at 53.5. Where did you guys fall on the New York Knicks?
Going under.
Over.
It's like I'm on the island on this one.
All right, Laugh. As the guy on the island here, why'd you go under on the Knicks?
So I don't feel super strongly about this one, so I could be convinced otherwise, but I think it's a fair number, 53.5. They clearly got better, adding Bridges. That being said, I think the Hartenstein loss is pretty significant for them, especially given Mitchell Robinson's injury concerns. And the two bigs they had last year were a huge part of why they were so successful last year. They were a great rebounding team, great defensive team. I still think they'll be that, but I do think that loss to that depth piece will be pretty significant. The Bridges piece is a great ad for them. I think they're going to be a really fun team to watch. I'm very interested and honestly a little scared for the Celtics, seeing them come through in the playoffs. So I think they'll be a better playoff team maybe than regular season team. That 53.5 number, that's a high number.
It is.
Right. And again, we're talking about you're playing the Celtics, you're playing the Cavs, Magic, Bucks, all these teams, 76ers just loaded up. So again, I just think it's more likely that there's a leveling out of these 50-ish win teams rather than having some dominant teams. All that being said, I could see it flipping the other way. Getting Bridges is a huge ad for them. Their starting five is their top 6, really impressive. And the other weird piece about them, though, is just Julius Randle. And I know you guys have touched on that in other podcasts, but it is hard to see where he fits in. He honestly, I could see him being a fantastic 6-man off the bench and having a huge spark plug, huge scoring with the second unit. But I don't think he's going to settle for that,
Right.
just given his personality and his play style. So very interested to see how that all works out. But yeah, this is a slight lean for me, but I go under.
Fair enough. And Marco, why'd you go over on the Knicks?
Yeah, I went back and forth too, and my notes were just the exact same. Mitchell Robinson is injury prone, played 31 games last year, 59 the year before, which is still not a lot. And then, how does Randall fit in? And the thing for me that kind of made the decision was they've been used to playing with guys out. So the role players like Hart and Dante, like if Randall's out for a week here or there, or even like Bridges, OG, like they have so much depth and they have guys that have now played a lot of meaningful games. And like to me, they seem like a regular season team where they're probably the biggest threat to just go all out in the regular season and somehow get like 57 and steal the 1 seed. So I just feel like I believe in their depth probably more than any other team in the East. They re-signed Precious Achua, I think, yesterday. We had kind of joked about how Jericho Sims is their backup center and could end up getting a lot of minutes. So it seems like that they kind of filled that hole. They got 50 wins last year, which is a lot. And it feels like,
They were good last year.
They were good. And so
it'll
come down to how they fit with Bridges and Randall and if guys stay healthy.
Yeah, I kind of fall into Marco's line on this one. The Knicks are just such a deep team, and then with Tibbs just running guys into the ground, like he'll play these guys so many minutes and grind out a regular season 1 seed. I feel like that's kind of that's what the line was screaming to me was this team's kind of built, like with how deep they are. They can sustain injuries. They have a coach who really wants to play his starters and go all out no matter what. They scream regular season team to me, maybe like 56 wins, maybe less. I don't know. It's just a random number I came up with, but we'll see. And Marco's been kind of swaying me on Randall and making me think that, like, I think Randall could make a little bit more sense than I've been saying there. There's a world where he kind of fits. They need, they need another option down low, an offensive weapon when they have so many of these defensive weapons too. So I'm sure he can take some of the load off Brunson on the offensive side of the ball. Bringing Achua back is pretty big for them too. I mean, it's not Hartenstein. I still love Hartenstein's energy and just like, how good of a rebounder he was for them last season. But I think with 50 wins last season, they definitely got better. So I'll go over here.
I think they could even play some small ball lineups. I hadn't really thought about that, but if you're losing Hartenstein and Robinson gets injured, they can easily put together a really good defensive small ball lineup with Achua or even Randall as a 5,
Agreed.
So
yep.
I think I'd be interested to see how they use that as well.
100%. And guys like Dante off the bench, like providing some offense too. Like Josh Hart is like an energy guy. Like they just are so deep. They run really, really deep. And I'm excited to see what they bring this season.
Yeah. And even deeper, like Miles McBride, Cameron Payne, like they're good.
Yeah.
Kata Bates,
real players.
I feel like he's one of your guys that's in like deep down.
Yeah, from maybe a couple seasons ago. I'm probably out on him now. He might maybe a role player, sure. And then to transition over to the team that is kind of, people are on the fence if the Knicks or the Sixers are better. It's a very polarizing opinion. People have polarizing opinions on that. The Philadelphia 76ers win total is set at 52.5 on FanDuel. Where do you guys land on the Sixers?
Oh, yeah.
And, there we go.
Clean sweep.
Yeah, this is the most biased take. well 76ers haters.
Yeah, so my take kind of comes down to health on the Sixers. Not super confident in Embiid. He didn't even play today for in the Olympics for the national team. Paul George has not been notoriously healthy over the course of his career. Provides definitely like the star level that they needed alongside Maxey and Embiid, but their depth is kind of thin. I don't find myself thinking as high of them as I do like the Knicks depth or the Magic depth or the Cavs depth. I kind of have them in that 4 or 5 bucket in the East. Maybe I'm too low on them, but I don't love their guys like Kelly Oubre, Eric Gordon's all right. Like just the pieces around their big 3 don't wow me enough for me to have them going over that total. That total is pretty high in my opinion.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's definitely, and honestly, your Knicks screaming regular season take kind of almost flipped me the other way on how I'm feeling about the Knicks over-under. And the 76ers are the exact opposite, right? They scream, try hard in the playoffs, coast to or get to the playoffs, but try hard then, save your guys for that, So I don't see them being a regular season hero. I think like same arguments before. The East is tough, and you hit on the health. That's the most terrifying part. Embiid, you just can't really rely on him as a long term option. They one thing I will say in the positive for them is adding Andre Drummond. I think is a great addition for them as a backup big. Um, I obviously he's limited offensively, but his rebounding and defense can provide something that they haven't had in the past. And I'm not the biggest Paul Reed guy. After seeing him come in last year, especially in the playoffs, he just did not look like a guy that could be on the court. So, and Andre Drummond has a lot more uh, veteran leadership and experience to bring to that team. So I do think that's a good addition, but I don't think it's enough for a regular season bump for me to put them over that 52.5 mark.
Gotcha. And I just one thing to add on Paul George's health as well. Last season he did play 74 games, but the 4 seasons prior he was at 56, 31, 54, 48. So expecting him to be healthy all season is a fool's errand, I would say. And Marco, why also did you go under on the Sixers?
Yeah. So I wrote down their win total over the past 7 seasons. So starting from 7 years ago, it was 52, 51, 43 in a COVID year, which is pretty good. 49 in the other COVID year. 51, 54, 47. So last year they were at 47. Embiid only played 39 games. So it makes sense. Their weakest year was when he missed the most time. So the 52.5 is kind of right where they've been every year. So the under, I think, yeah, it's kind of banking on Embiid missing time and not, playing 60 games like max. That might be harsh, but yeah, I don't know. I guess with Maxey, like I think he's a fun player, and he's going to have games where he just gets 40 points and wins them just with his scoring. But I don't know how much higher his ceiling is, like from what we saw, and that might be completely wrong. But like him, like best case for them, say Embiid plays 60 games, Paul George is like, okay, at this point in his career, Maxey's good. Like even with them playing their best, yeah, I don't love their depth, and I think I see them as like a 49 win team. I don't know why that number is in my head, but I see them as like a solid in the mix, like 3 or 4 seed. But yeah, I don't know. And I think another thing that is a good point is they're always worse than you think on the road. They're definitely like the worst road team historically of these like top teams for some reason. I don't know if it's just, I don't know like considering if you just go back and look at their standings, like they're always kind of around that 500, barely above 500 on the road. So I don't know. There's something about them. They lack that extra like regular season gear that we saw the Celtics have last year.
And just one note on Paul George, though. I didn't notice he shot 41.3% from three last year. He really kind of kicked up his efficiency from both the field and from from the 3-point line. So he had a really good season. Let's see if he can keep that going, keep the health consistent too. Maybe that would if he is kind of a catalyst in them being, getting to that number, getting over that number.
Yeah. One thing to keep in mind with that, though, he did have James Harden as a point, right? And he's going to 76ers, who I'd be pretty afraid, to be honest, of their chemistry to start and their passing. Yeah, I don't think they have, like, Maxey's a scoring first guard. He's going to be their ball handler. Embiid is a ball dominant center. He's gotten better at passing, certainly. And I think Nick Nurse has helped unlock that side of his game. So maybe Paul George can benefit from that. And he didn't have that with the Clippers. So we'll see. But it definitely is different not having a James Harden like distributor, at the point.
That's a great point. And then we can move on to the Milwaukee Bucks. Their over-under on FanDuel is set at 50.5. Where did you guys fall on the Milwaukee Bucks?
Oh.
And you guys are putting me on an island again.
Yeah. Right. Okay, Laugh. Why'd you go under then, since you're on the island?
I went
over.
So, no worries. Misspoke. So, yeah. This one was tough for me. I would say it's a strong lean, not a, I'm not going to go betting this on FanDuel right now, but I like what they've done in the offseason so far. I think they made good depth piece moves that they really lacked. They've gotten some shooting around them that they needed. They've gotten some more defensive guards where that was a clear lack last year with Damian Lillard just getting abused by guys like Halliburton. Pacers were killing them. So yeah, I like where they're at, and I also think they were thrown into a pretty tough situation last year, given Damian Lillard's drama in the offseason. No time to gel with the team, figure out how it works, how they can work together with Giannis. They also got a new coach halfway through the year, so it just wasn't their year. And every other year that Giannis has been, one of the stars of the league, the Bucks have been one of the best teams in the East, undoubtedly. And Giannis has also been one of the healthiest guys in the league, and of course he got injured last year. So I like the Bucks core still. I know they're getting older. And I know that's a scare off certainly for regular season versus playoffs, but that 50.5 number is just really intriguing to me. It feels like if you want to be a home court first round playoff team, you got to have 50 wins to be in that mix in the East, and I think the Bucks can get there. The other piece is I think Damian Lillard having another offseason, an actual offseason this year, to prep and to work with Giannis on how they can best utilize each other. I do think Damian Lillard still has a lot left in the tank. So I think having another year under his belt there is going to unlock a few new things for their offense. So I'm relatively high on the Bucks, where I think a lot of people have sort of forgotten about them with all the moves in the East recently. And it's clearly a team that's been together a long time and has a lot of chemistry.
No fear with Middleton ankle surgeries or anything like that.
There's a lot of fear with relying on Middleton. That is definitely a downside for them. Their health and their age, is obviously a deterrent. But I do think this is like last run kind of season for them. Maybe one more year after this, but we'll see.
That's a fair take. And what's your opinion on Doc as a head coach? Just curious as well.
Not the biggest fan. I as Celtics fans, it's hard to not love a guy that brought us a championship, but he's definitely not someone I think is great strategically. And I also don't love him in the playoffs, but I do think regular season, I don't think he's a detriment to their team as much as people might think. I think he wants to succeed, and he's going to utilize a star like Giannis to the best of his abilities. Wouldn't say he's one of the best coaches in the league that could do that, but I don't think he's as much of a detriment during the regular season as people might think.
That's fair. He did go 17-19 when he was with the Bucks as their head coach last year. But to your point, with Philly, he was up over their win total in 2 of the 3 seasons. And then Marco, why did you fall on the underside of the Bucks?
Yeah, you made points there, Laugh. So you got me kind of questioning my thought process. Yeah, I think they made the most out of their offseason. Like, they got Trent kind of last second. They got Delon Wright, who everyone loves, Taurean Prince. But still, I don't love their depth. Kind of similar to Philly. Like, Lillard's shooting has kind of steadily gone down. I believe in Giannis. I feel like of all these players, like, I believe in Giannis more than I believe in Embiid probably at this point. So like, I probably wouldn't target betting this under just because I feel like he is super motivated and like could easily see them getting like 55 wins and being I don't know if I see them being the 1 seed, but I don't know. I don't. It just feels like they were a mess last year. Like, particularly the second half of the year with Doc, it just seemed like every day there was something coming out about some sort of problem, some sort of like clashing, and just I don't know. I don't believe that enough has been done to really improve beyond just being like, oh, we have Gary Trent Jr. now, like who the Raptors didn't really want. Like, I don't know. And my hot take before was that they would take the biggest step back seed-wise of any East team. So I have to stick to my take. Like, even if that's kind of a crazy thing to say, I feel like, a lot of question marks with Dame, Middleton, and Brook Lopez. So I believe in Giannis, but I just don't think, I don't know. Like, what if Middleton is just bad next year? They're not
pretty big.
But that all being said, I mean, they had 49 wins last year, so they were right there at this line despite just having a meltdown. So they could easily get over.
Yeah, I fall on the underside, not as any disrespect to Giannis. He's my favorite player. I love the guy, but he's a guy that is consistently been rested on back to backs. He's had knee issues for much of his career. Dame just maybe isn't the type of guard that I particularly love. I feel like last year we saw how much they missed Drew Holiday and how important Drew Holiday was to their team, just providing that defensive impact from a guard. And I don't think they replaced that in their offseason. Like I like DeLon Wright in spurts. I don't think he's a guy that can play a ton of minutes for them. And I don't think Gary Trent brings any defense really either with it. I like Taurean Prince. I like DeLon Wright, like I said, as cheap guys, but I don't know if it's enough. And then the Middleton thing is really the big thing that scares me a lot with them. And then Brook Lopez's age as well. I just could see a lot going wrong with them. I don't love Doc. I don't feel like they've been making the right decisions, from in the grand scheme of things. I like the little signings, but I don't think the scope, the overall vision is right for them to be a really big powerhouse in the East. But I could eat those words because I think Giannis is a man on a mission. And I did like a lot of what Laugh said, and it has me kind of questioning it. I'd be close, like 48, 49 wins, but I think I'd be slightly under.
Yeah.
And then next up, we have the Cleveland Cavaliers, whose over-under is set at 47.5. Where did you guys fall on the Cavs?
Oh, yeah.
Hell yeah, the sweep. Let's go. All right, Marco, why'd you go over on the Cavs?
Yeah, I thought this line was maybe a little surprising. They had 48 wins last year, 51 the year before, the first year with Donovan Mitchell. And it seems like they're getting a big improvement at head coach. And it seems like the big key to unlock is Evan Mobley. So I just don't think they're worse than last year. Right? I don't really get... I mean, I guess it's the lines maybe implying that some of the teams below them got better. So it's just that middle ground is more competitive. But I think they have a stronger top four than Philly, the Bucks, comparable maybe to the Knicks. And, yeah, then you have Strus, LeVert, Craig Porter. Maybe the middle guys aren't as flashy, but they played well last year. And quietly also, I mean, they had Mitchell, Garland, and Mobley all missed a lot of time last season, and they still had 48 wins. So, yeah, I don't know. I think to me, I could see them winning that division, and I like the way they fought against the Celtics in the playoffs. I thought they looked, yeah. And, Bickerstaff, you hear kind of pros and cons about him. It seems like they had a good culture, but maybe just to unlock them to the next level, they needed a different coach. So yeah, maybe that's something to keep in mind too. A new coach, there's that little period at the start where things aren't that smooth, but I like their team.
And Laugh, why'd you go over as well?
Yeah, share the same sentiment. I definitely don't think it's a great line. If I would think the line is more like 49.5. I think they're a 50-win, pretty legitimate 50-win threat. I don't think they got worse by any means. They locked up Donovan Mitchell, where there was some question marks about that, him potentially leaving. There's some drama last year. So I think the big thing that's gone overlooked with them is Darius Garland, specifically where he had a jaw injury last year, and he was playing, hurt through recovering on that. That's a hard thing for a guard in the NBA, small, undersized guard, to deal with that kind of injury and to drive to the basket the same way and to play the same way. I think having an offseason to fully recover from that, I just love his game. His pairing with Donovan Mitchell is so much fun to watch. And so I just wanted to touch on that. I think the Mobley piece is the biggest piece that people are talking about, though, and I do think this is a year where he breaks out a little bit more offensively. So, yeah, I think the sky's pointing up for the Cavs.
I share the same sentiment as you both. I'm very high on the Evan Mobley resurgence this season. I mentioned that I worked for the Nets and saw Jared Allen attempting threes under Kenny Atkinson. It's kind of the same thing. I really think he'll unlock that next level for Evan Mobley. He's been known to be this guy who is a big development coach. So getting more time with him for guys like Garland and Mobley will be huge. I think that they're an extremely young team. They had 48 wins, did you say, Marco, or 49 last year?
40.
48 wins. They had 48 wins last season. And like they were injured for the most of it, like you mentioned, and they're just getting more developed, and their depth is great. Like they have guys like Isaac Okoro, they have Dean Wade, who's kind of like a monster defender. Sneaky point about Dean Wade is he's second in the NBA in defensive rating last season. Isn't that insane?
Wow.
That is very.
Yep, I would not have guessed that. I would have. You just gave up a great trivia question for another pod.
For guys that play 20 minutes or more, he was second in the NBA in defensive rating last season. He is like a huge, like different look for them, like outside of Mobley or Allen, if they don't want to play the two bigs at once. Like he's another guy that can step in. They have LeVert off the bench. They got the perfect fit there next to their guys with Strus last year. I thought that was huge for them. And just having another year of health, having another year kind of together for that bunch, I think will be huge for them. I think I'm over 50 wins for them for sure. And then, if you guys are ready, we can go on to the Orlando Magic, whose total is, like the Cavs, set at 47.5 wins. Where did you guys fall on the Magic? I wonder where I did. Oh, the disrespect.
First island for Justin.
Yeah. All right. So, should I defend my case first then?
Yeah, Justin, why were you on the over and why me and Marco were on the under, just for the podcast listeners out there?
Yes, I was on the over for the Magic, specifically because they are a really young bunch, right? They had a resurgence last season. They kind of came to the forefront in the East for the first time ever, that 47 wins. They're just getting another year more developed. Paulo, I think, can take that next step. Franz Wagner has been a guy who's also, sneaky point, was fourth in the NBA in defensive rating last season. So a really good defender. They were a defensive team. They brought in Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, which I think is a massive get for them alongside Jalen Suggs. The backcourt is so scary, so defensive. They're going to be hounding teams defensively. It all comes down to what their offense is. Who is kind of manning that point duty? Is Paulo going to be taking the ball up most of the time? Is Franz going to be taking the ball up most of the time? Is it going to be Suggs? So we kind of have to see how that offense looks. It looked really disjointed against the Cavaliers, but I think they'll figure it out. I think what they're going to end up doing is going to be Paulo's offense, and he's going to be kind of like running like a LeBron style point. I hope that's the way they go. I'm really excited for the Magic. I think they're one of the most well-rounded starting fives in the league at this point. And then, whether they go Isaac, whether they go Wendell Carter Jr., I think those are different looks that they can give teams. And Mo Wagner's a huge piece off the bench for them. And then they have Jet Howard looked great in the summer league. So I couldn't speak high enough of the Magic. I have them as one of the top 3 seeds in the East pretty clearly. Any rebut? Whoever wants to.
You want to go first?
Sure. So I don't have a strong rebuttal. This was right on the line for me. So this is a slight lean on the under. I think it really comes down to what you said around their offense. I'm a big proponent of team chemistry, of strong passing, and I think that this team struggles with that because they don't have a clear ball handler, and Paolo ended up being the de facto ball handler for them. I think he can certainly develop his distributing ability more so this year as he gets to be a better player. So I think that's the difference here. If he can do that, I think this team can definitely unlock something, especially with that KCP ad. But I'm just not sure I'm there yet from what I've seen from Paolo. And that's really all this comes down to for me, because their defensive identities, they were a big surprise to me last year with how well they did in the regular season. Definitely were a little bit disappointing in the playoffs, but we saw that Cavs team against the Celtics. They put up a really good fight against us, really until Donovan Mitchell went out, and even then, there weren't cakewalk games by any means. So bringing that series to 7 is no joke in the playoffs. So I think they definitely could get over this hump. It also just comes down to, like we talked about, there's a lot of good teams in the East that they're going to have to go through, and I really would guess like 47 wins. So I think the line's right on. But yeah, that's where I'm at with them.
And Marco?
Yeah, Guess good little mid pod trivia. Guess the last time the Magic had back to back winning seasons. Just throw out some years.
2010.
2004.
It's good. Yeah, 2010, 2011. So that was a great answer. So yeah,
That was a good
I was
answer.
just thinking Dwight Howard championship run in 09.
That's true.
so not that that's relevant, but yeah, it's interesting. The line is right where they were last year. Like they got KCP, and everyone's kind of like, "Oh, they're the real winner of the offseason," and then Vegas is like, "They're going to be the same." I think the East, yeah, we're same kind of thing we've been talking about. The East in this midfield is just going to be super competitive. I don't know if I see them taking that OKC leap. Like I don't, they're not going to be, in my opinion, like a 55 win team, but they're fun. I'm a fan. You know, I don't think it's shameful at all for them to be like a 45, 46 win team. I don't know if I love, yeah, their big depth. Are Black and Howard going to be good? Like, I like all their guys. It's just, I don't feel comfortable saying, not comfortable. I don't feel confident being like, oh yeah, they're a smash over. So yeah, but I like them. I'm rooting for them. I would root for them to be over.
They're just a team that plays so hard, and I feel like they're a team in the regular season that's just going to be like just grinding out wins, like breaking teams down, teams that are resting players. Like I just feel like they're not a team that's going to be resting players frequently, and just adding that extra shooter to their offense kind of gives Paulo that extra look, in KCP, and also takes some of that. Like you saw Jalen Suggs getting beat up in the playoffs. He got injured a couple times in that series against the Cavs. I feel like kind of giving him a defensive break some nights and having KCP step up and play the best guard on offense will be kind of good for them to keep him healthy all year. So I just really like their depth. Their team is just so solid, and I have to stick with my team there for sure.
Like it.
And then up next we got the Indiana Pacers. Same over under as the Magic, as the Cavs. It's 47.5. Where did you guys fall on the Pacers?
Oh yeah.
Ooh, Marco on the over.
Wow, Marco on the island. Why'd you go
Right.
over?
I think I just believe in their development. Like for some reason, I believe in Jarris Walker more than Anthony Black and Jet Howard right now. I like Nesmith. I like Shepard as just role players. Nembhard, like, is he just going to be good now? TJ McConnell, like, I feel like they have just similar to Magic. They're going to play hard. They're. I was going to say they're a regular season team, but they made the East Finals, so it's like they have that experience now. I think Halliburton had some kind of lingering hamstring things going on last year, so I think he'll improve. But he's another guy that's playing a lot. Like, I guess he's not playing a lot on the Olympic team, but he's doing a lot. So I don't know. We'll see what he does, but I think the thing with them is the defense, and I think the defensive concerns mattered less in the regular season. So I see them. I could also see them winning the Central, like over the Bucks and over the Cavs. I think they're legit.
You can laugh. Why'd you go on the underside?
Yeah, this is another lean more than a strong feel. I think the line is pretty solid at 47.5. I really liked what they did in the playoffs, making the Eastern Conference Finals. Obviously, it was a bit weaker. They beat a injured Bucks team. Gave the Celtics some good games, but ultimately, without Halliburton, they just didn't have enough. But Nembhard clearly took a leap in the playoffs. I couldn't believe every time he was hitting that mid-range pull-up jumper. Every time, no matter how contested he was hitting that. So I think they unlocked something there. They did it without Benedict Mathurin on that run, so he'll be back. The addition of Pascal, I think, was great. I went to a regular season game, Pacers against the Celtics, and Pascal went for 35 and just couldn't miss a shot. So I just haven't seen that side of him, and if he can, continue to develop his shot as he has over the years, I do think their offense is going to be scary, just like last year. But ultimately, it really comes down more to their defense. They were one of the worst defensive teams in the league last year, regular season especially, and they stepped that up during the playoffs. But I don't see them. I don't think they've made really a lot of improvements on that front from a roster addition perspective. And I don't know. I kind of disagree with defense not mattering as much in the regular season. Obviously, it matters more in the playoffs. That's obvious, but I think those games can just get away from you pretty easily in the regular season when you're not having that defensive identity versus a Knicks or a Magic. Like I do think those are more grinded out teams than someone like the Pacers. So I think the line's pretty good at 47.5, but yeah, I have a slight lean under.
Yeah, when the line initially opened at 45.5, I might have actually been on the over. It's just I'm so close to the line there. I just tend to like the other teams in the East a little bit more. Like I said, the Magic and the Cavs. Um, yeah, the Pacers, you're right. They bring back Benedict Mathurin. They didn't have a full season of Siakam, so they'll get him for a full year. There's a lot of things to like. I didn't love what I saw from Halliburton in the back half of the season. So there's a little bit of worries on the offensive side of the ball there with Hallie. And then there's obviously his defensive woes. So yeah, I just feel like teams like the Magic, like could be nightmares for them, like on the defensive side of the ball. And I don't know if necessarily that they'll break through against the tough competition that is in the East nowadays. So I'm slightly under. I'm in the there'll be a 6 seed, 5 seed, somewhere like that for me. 46, 47 wins maybe.
That would be a good playoff series. Next, Pacers Magic.
Yeah,
that'd be fun. Two different styles of basketball. Yeah.
It was close to happening. Yeah.
And the final team from the playoffs from last season was the Miami Heat. Their over under is set at 44.5. Where did you guys fall on the Miami Heat? I knew I was going to be on the island here. And trust me when I tell you, I went under on the Heat just for the podcast listeners. Everyone else went over. This was one where I was like, I have to stand my ground because on every other podcast, like on the hot takes when I said that they were going to miss the playoffs, this line screams over to me, I will say, but I got to kind of stand my ground here. There's some weirdness with Pat Riley and Jimmy Butler. They did lose some pieces in DeLon Wright and Caleb Martin. I always get the brothers, the twins mixed up, right? It's Caleb or is it Cody? It's Caleb, right?
And Cody. Yeah, they lost Caleb.
It's Caleb Martin. So yeah, it's a big loss for them in a way. They really have to have that step up from Jaquez, and now Kel'el Ware as a rookie. It's kind of going to have to be forced to play in a big role. I don't know if I believe in Jovic necessarily, so it really comes down to their depth. Like Rozier is not a good defender. He's not a high efficiency scorer. He doesn't shoot the ball super efficiently from three. I like Hero as a spark. I like what I've been seeing from Bam in the Olympics. Looks really good. Bam and Jimmy, I'm not too concerned about. Jimmy's another year older, so I'll just, I know Spoelstra's the head coach, so they're probably going to find the way into the playoffs and hit the over. But, to stick with my guns, I will go under.
Respectable. I think the big thing for me is they just keep hitting on the draft in the middle of the first round. Like it seems like Ware is clearly already one of the better rookies that showcased out in Summer League. He is providing big depth that they haven't really had much in the past couple of years. So having that behind Bam is pretty big. Even seeing Bam play as like a point forward, almost like as a forward with Ware out there, could be an interesting lineup change that gives them some versatility. The other interesting, I don't believe in the Bam shot, the Bam 3-pointer, but that's been a little topic of conversation. If he could somehow get that shot going, that's a game changer for them. But no, It really comes more down to Spoelstra for me. Celtics fans here have some PTSD with the Heat, as we all do. So I definitely believe in what he can make out of that roster. I think Hero takes another step forward in the right direction. Jimmy is going to want to prove himself like he always does. I'm not worried about what he can bring to the table. I would say I do like Jovic, what he was putting together last year when they were a little bit more injury depleted. I hadn't watched him a whole lot, and I didn't. One, his size is just he's a big dude and he can shoot, he can ball handle. So I think he's a really interesting young player. Just another year of development under Spoelstra. So I'm a believer in what they can put together, but I don't see them making a far run in the playoffs. And I think you guys touched on this in another pod too, but they are in a weird middle zone. Like they're not bad enough to be one of those bottom teams that are um, tanking for the top pick, but they're not good enough, I don't think, to be one of the top teams either. So I think they're stuck in purgatory, and 45, 46 wins. That's where that's at. So yeah, I'm going to lean over here.
Yeah, I think same thought process there. Like, if you look at Spoelstra's career without LeBron, like his floor is kind of being around 500. So 44 is pretty low for like his history. They were at 46 wins last year. Hero quietly missed half the season. So if he's back, if he's healthy, takes a bit of the offensive load off Bam and Jimmy. Hawkes, like we said, Ware is a sneaky win now guy. Like, I think they're too good. I think they could win. I think they could be better than the Magic in the regular season. I hate to say it. Like, I've never been much of a Heat guy. I guess I respect Spoelstra and I respect Butler, but I just don't really like the Heat as a franchise. And they always have guys that kind of come out of nowhere. Like, it could be Hayward, Highsmith this year. Like, they always have guys that are sneaky. So I wouldn't be shocked if someone kind of takes those Caleb Martin minutes and, like, it's just good. So, yeah, I believe in them. And I think after here, for me, there's kind of a big gap in the standings. So I think they'll beat up on some of these bad teams.
Yeah, sneaky, one of the worst. Like, if you were to start a franchise, like one of like the least ideal destinations to take over. Like at this point, there's in such purgatory right now. Like, what would you do if you come in as like a new GM there? Are you just selling the ship? Are you, building around Hawkes and Ware? Are you trying to trade them off and push for title? Like, it's difficult.
It's tough.
Yep.
Yeah, I agree. They're lucky to have Spoelstra, and they're not. It hasn't been the free agency destination that you'd think maybe Miami would be. Like, they haven't really gotten guys,
especially after their run a couple years ago.
It's crazy with their late picks too. They're hitting on these guys that teams that are in the lottery are missing on. So maybe they don't need to be bad to rebuild. Like, that's an interesting thing, And then we can transition to a team that is kind of in a rebuild. Like I just said, the Atlanta Hawks, whose over under is 35.5 for next season. Where did you guys fall on the Hawks?
Oh,
Marco
on the island. Marco, why were you on the under for the Hawks?
This one I went back and forth with too. I would say this was one I thought about a lot. And big reason why, the Spurs have their draft pick. So they're not going to tank. And they won't suck. But I don't know. They were at 36 wins last year, so the line is right where they were. They lost DeJounte Murray. And they still have these guys like Bogdanovich, Capella, like same old kind of talented roster, Buffkin, Dyson Daniels. I like Richeche. Like, I think he's more of a project. Like, I don't know if he's going to contribute right now. And I don't think Trey has like necessarily contributed to winning basketball. Like, I don't know if he's good enough with this roster to grind like being near 500. But that being said, like, they're still in the play-in mix, so they have the 9th highest over/under total right now. And they don't have the Spurs have their draft picks, so they're motivated to win. It's just I don't know what's going to happen. Are they going to trade Capella? Are they going to trade Trae Young? I just think I'm always high on them. I'm always like, they're going to be good. I like Quinn Snyder, and they always let me down. So I'm going a little counter my gut, and I'm going to go under. Yeah, I think. And can you see the Spurs getting like a really high draft pick through their pick, just like sneakily getting like the 4th? I don't know, not 4th, but like 2nd or 3rd pick. Just the things are going to work out for the Spurs, and this could be part of their little plan.
Well, against what you're saying, they have no reason to be bad, right? The Hawks. So I guess I'll just touch on why I went over on the Hawks really quick. So last year, DeJounte Murray he was bottom 25 in defensive win shares on a team who was in the play-in, which is shocking because most of those guys, if you pull up the list for defensive win shares, they're on teams that are like so far in the tank. And the Hawks were a respectable 36 win team. He was bottom 12 in defensive rating last year. Get him out the door, and you bring in Reese Shea, who's supposedly like this long wing who can kind of shoot and defend. I really like the resurgence of Jalen Johnson. He looked really good last season, especially in the back half of the season. I feel like he's going to take another leap. I'm a big fan of Trae Young. I just don't see how this team goes under that number. It feels like a pretty solid number, 35.5. They feel like a team that'll be in the play-in. The bottom of the East gets really ugly pretty fast. So, yeah, I tend to lean over here. I like their big depth with Capella, Okongwu. Yeah, I mean, their team's pretty deep, honestly.
Well, spoiler alert, but this is one of my favorite overs on out of the whole league. So their win total opened up at 34.5 actually. So I wish I bet that when I saw it, and that was my gut reaction that was way too low the line for me. So here's my logic there. The last year their win total number was 41.5. I know that because I bet the over last year and I lost. So going back to the wall on this one. But yeah, I mean, to your point, Justin, I don't think DeJounte Murray is a 6-win, 7-win, guy for them. He wasn't the right fit with them. It didn't make sense with Trae as much as they thought it was. I really think DeJounte needed to be the ball dominant guy. And clearly, if he wasn't that on offense, then to your point on defense, he wasn't the value add that he should have been. They also just didn't have, the right mentality going into the season because I think Murray can be a good defensive player, but I don't think chemistry-wise, fit-wise, it just was a weird season for him. So I think the number is way too low. I would put it closer to that 40-win mark, and I also think it's really interesting that we just talked about the Miami Heat as the that 8th team, that 44.5 wins. Hawks are at 35.5. The next lowest team is at 30 wins. So the Hawks are really in this like mid-30s area by themselves. So I can see them definitely being pushing for the play-in spot again. I wouldn't necessarily agree that they're in a rebuild. I know you mentioned that earlier, Justin. I know obviously they got the number 1 pick, so that would make sense. But I think they have a lot of young talent that they don't really need to like tank to necessarily. Like they have a lot of their core that they've had over the last couple of years that he touched on. And big Jalen Johnson fan. I think he's been a smash hit for them. I still like what Capella brings to their team. I really like Trae Young's game. And I think he's gone from overrated to underrated, back and forth a few different times. And right now I feel like he's underrated offensively just because of how everything ended up last year. But I really like what they can bring to the table, and I just think the number is too low, so I'm on the over for the Hawks.
Yeah, that's fair. So just to defend why I said rebuild, specifically, I feel like when you trade a piece, like a win now piece away and you get, picks and like a Dyson Daniels, who's like, a future potential defensive stopper for them. But I definitely I like the talent on their roster a lot. Like, I don't think rebuilding necessarily means that they have to go under 40 wins.
Sure.
This bad team, they can be young and gritty.
Yeah, that's definitely fair. That's definitely fair. I didn't even touch on Reese Shea. I'm not sure he's the guy, but I hope if they believe in him enough to be a first overall pick, that he's a fit piece, more than necessarily like top prospect guy. So I kind of like that for their regular season prospects as well, rather than going for like a Alexander Sarr, like where they clearly already had bigs. Clint Capella's getting up there in age, so like I think that move signifies that they're trying to go, make a push now, rather than which, to your point, they don't have their pick this year, so why tank? So
exactly,
yeah, I like the Hawks over.
Fair. And then next up, we have the Toronto Raptors, whose over-under is set up at 30.5. Where did you guys fall on the Raptors? Oh,
I had a feeling on this one.
Laugh on the island. Why are you under on the Raptors?
Honestly, the end of this, East side, I think the Raptors are the starting point where you get into these like young, potentially tanking teams that could be in the Cooper Flag market. So we're going to start. I'm sure we'll hit on that point a few more times for some of these teams, but I think the Raptors are one of those teams. I love Scotty Barnes and I love what he brings to the table. I don't know if I see him as a number one guy though. I think he needs to be like the second number two guy with someone that can facilitate and distribute for him. And I don't see Quickly or Barrett really being that guy. Like they're both quality players, and I think they're both skilled. But I just don't see them having that gravitational pull, to take take pressure off of Scotty Barnes. I think it's going to be all on his shoulders. And he's made great improvements. Like I really liked what I saw from him. So I don't mean to be harping on him too much. It's just, the way their coach and their owner talks about him, like he's the next face of the league. I don't see that, but as a two-way player and his size and unique athleticism, he's a fantastic, fantastic player. So, yeah, it's a weird team to me. And I don't see them making a push to be one of those playing teams. I see them more as trying to go the other direction with the moves they made, how young they've gotten. So, yeah, I lean under here. Not a heavy pull in one direction or the other, though.
And Marco, defend your guy, Scotty Barnes.
Yeah, I could see them. It seems like they need another cornerstone next to Barnes. Like, it does feel like they're very far away from being, a top team. That being said, I think they have some depth. I think they have Pirtle, Olynyk, Bruce Brown, RJ Barrett, whatever he is. Grady Dick maybe will be more of a guy this year. I guess, maybe they trade some of these players. Maybe they trade Bruce Brown. Like, it seems like they like Pirtle and Olynyk. So, I don't know. I just think, the bottom of the East is pretty bad. And I think they're not terrible. And I think they could still be, 32 wins, 33 wins, and get like a top 10 pick. And that they'll get a solid guy in this loaded draft. So it's like, I don't know if we've seen them like tank before. I just don't know if they're going to be like 30 wins is pretty bad. Realistically, we've talked, we saw, there's a kind of a big jump here, like you said, from Heat, Hawks. Like, I don't know if they're that bad. But, yeah, it feels like their ceiling is like the 10 seed and then losing in the play-in. But I like Barnes. I think he got beat up a little being like the one option. We talked a little about how he was kind of thrown into being the number one option on offense and defense last year. And I think he's a year stronger, a year wiser. And I believe in him. And I think he has more jumps to make. But yeah, I don't know. Yeah, not a confident over for me.
Yeah, so for me, it specifically comes down to this. The Raptors, they've had these guys under contract for a while, and they kind of just let them go for next to nothing with like Van Vliet. They don't seem like a team that wants to ever rebuild. Like even in Siakam's case, I feel like they probably got offered multiple packages with first, and yet they took a package of just players and Quickly and Barrett. None of what they got included first round picks specifically. So I feel like they're gonna try. Scotty Barnes actually improved a lot as a 3-point shooter last year. He's still below league average, but 34% from three is pretty respectable. So he's gonna be taking those more. I really love what I saw from Quickly there. He got his assist total way up last season when he moved from the Knicks to the Raptors. He'll be having a full season manning that point guard duty. He had 6.8 assists per game last season on 39.5% from three. So I really like IQ. I really like Scotty Barnes. Their top 7 is quite solid. They have Quickly, Barrett, Dick, Barnes, Pirtle, Olynyk, and Bruce Brown. Like that's a pretty solid 7. It doesn't feel like a 7 that is like a rebuilding 7. It seems like a respectable enough bunch that could, push high 30s in win total, I'd say, at the max. And then, I think this number is just a little too low for me.
Yeah, it feels like they're a team that's always kind of in that like 7 to 13 draft pick range. Like, I don't see them, unless they get lucky with the lottery, I don't see them being that far down. And I don't think there's going to be like 7 or 8 teams under 30 wins. There could be.
And then speaking of a team that finished with under 30 wins last season, up next we got the the Charlotte Hornets, whose win total is set at 29.5 for next season. Where did you guys fall on the Charlotte Hornets?
Okay.
Marco on the island. Why'd you go over on the Hornets?
Same kind of reasoning as the Raptors. I think they're not terrible, and I think they could have a failure of a season with like 32 wins and still be over. I mean, I guess I can't just say over for every team, but I think, they were at 21 wins last year. 27 the year before. LaMelo has barely been playing the past 2 years. I think if LaMelo plays more than 60, 65 games, like their record with him is obviously very different than without him. So I feel like if they're in this mode of he's out and they're kind of just throwing out terrible starting lineups and they're going to lose, like I don't think they're going to. They can't just keep doing that. They need to just be not terrible. I like Charles Lee coming in from the Celtics. I think I think the culture shifted. They're going to be more of like a real team. Josh Green's sneaky good 3-and-D guy. You know, who knows what his role is going to be, but I just think they have too many guys to be that bad. But I probably would never confidently bet on LaMelo's health. Like I think it's a bet on him playing and Miller taking steps forward. I kind of like their team.
And Laugh, you want to touch on why you went under on the Hornets?
Yeah, I think you hit it right at the beginning, Marco. It's really around LaMelo's health. It's not something I trust, and that's unfortunate because I like watching him. I like seeing how he's developed as a player, and he's honestly a lot better than I thought he was going to be when he was starting out. So I like their prospects. I think their top 5, top 6 is solid. It's not great, but I think they have some pieces, but I was also on the Hornets over last year, and I think there was a lot of hype on that. I think it's right around the same line, like 29, 30 wins. And all stemmed really from LaMelo's health. So that's all of this is. I think they're another team that could pretty easily hit the tank button pretty quick. And you'll see a common trend with me on the East here. It's more just, I think the bottom of the East is by far the worst part of the league right now. The bottom of the West, there's really like maybe 1 or 2 teams in the West that are there versus like the 5 or 6 in the East. So that's where I see the race to the bottom happening. That's where I'm at with the Hornets. I think they're right in that mix with some of these other teams we'll be talking about.
Yeah, I think that's all fair. I kind of fall on the under. I've thought about it a lot. At one point, I was like, why don't I just throw like $1 on the Hornets to win the Southeast Division? Because if healthy,
that number was crazy.
I know, it's like 150 to 1. It was insane. Yeah. And the only other competition is the Heat and the Magic really in that division, which I'm high on the Magic obviously, but they're not proven necessarily yet. But it just definitely comes down to health, like you said with LaMelo. I'm not super confident that he's going to play a full season. He hasn't shown the ability to do that yet in his career. Most he's played 75 games, and then every other season he's been 51 or under. And Miles Bridges just doesn't really play a whole lot of defense and is super inefficient. I don't really love him as a player. Mark Williams has not proven to be healthy. Brandon Miller, just a second-year pro at this point. I believe in him as a talent, but other than that, I don't really trust the rest of the guys on the roster, to be honest. I don't think they go insanely deep. Grant Williams is decent. They traded a lot of their depth away and PJ Washington and stuff like that. So I'm just not the highest on this team. I'm probably in the 20s for the Hornets for sure. And then we can move on to the Chicago Bulls, whose over-under is set at 27.5 for next season. Where did you guys fall on the Bulls? Oh, me on the island. So just a counterpoint to my Hornets take, it feels I'm on the over for the viewers or for the listeners. And it feels like they're not trying to rebuild specifically. Their team without Levine last season was very respectable. They were a respectable bunch. I like a lot of what Josh Giddey has shown in the international competition, like as a passer. Just having that primary playmaker like they had with Lonzo that year, they had over 50 wins. Like I think could be pretty huge for them. I'm not saying they're going to be that same team, but getting guys like Kobe White like open looks, getting guys like Ayo Dosunmu open looks. They still have Levine there. They still have Vooch there. Their team is solid. I don't know if they're going to commit to going young. It doesn't feel that way to me. Like Patrick Williams just needs to be a little bit healthier. Like the number just felt too low for them. They feel much better than the Hornets to me as a team. I feel like their number should be closer to what the Raptors number is. That's kind of where I would put them. So I've fallen on the over pretty clearly here.
That's all reasonable. Yeah, I think my first kind of note was that it's just tough to predict this team if they keep Levine and Vooch. They've been around a 500 team the past couple of years. So I think the line seems low considering it's a team that doesn't really tank. It's kind of going against like what makes sense. I don't know. I just feel like there's a lot of pieces here. How does Giddey fit in? Buzelis, yeah, we talked about his efficiency problems. Like, who knows how much he's going to play? Losing DeMar, I think, leaves a lot of like question marks offensively. Like Kobe White probably can't have much more of a load. Patrick Williams, we've seen, he can shoot a little bit. I don't know. It's a weird line, I would say. This is the first line that it kind of doesn't fully make sense, just considering it's whatever.
Yeah, 39 wins last season, and then they lost DeRozan, but they didn't have Levine all season, and he comes back.
Yeah.
It feels low in my opinion, but
it feels low, and then it's kind of betting against the development of like Giddey and Patrick Williams, and even Ayo, like he's good. We've talked about him a lot. I think.
Yeah, and Buzelis looked very good in the summer league too. So it just depends on how much they want to play him too. I don't know if he's going to be a guy that they're giving a boatload of minutes to at the gates, but we'll see.
For me, I disagree with your first take, Justin. Just that it doesn't feel like a rebuilding team. Like I think this is the first time in a long time the Bulls have actually felt like they might be on the rebuilding track. I know you guys have touched on that before, but finally giving up on DeRozan and being in that purgatory state. I think they, Vooch is still with them. I don't see him leaving, but that would be the next piece I would see going, But other than that, they are young, and I like that for them. But I also think that means they're in that tank race again. I think DeRozan is going to be a very significant hit to them. He's one of those guys that can always get you a bucket. He's so clutch. He's been a staple for them, and they really lack a leader right now too. And I don't know who that would be for that team from a chemistry perspective. So the other piece that's interesting is bringing in Giddey. I think Kobe White succeeded so much last year because he was ball dominant. I think Zach LaVine can play off the ball, but he's got his own issues. It's not someone I would really rely on too heavily. I think Ayo done pretty well in somewhat of a ball dominant role as well. So it's just a weird fit to see like who's going to be that guy for them. And then I was just reading Lonzo is still in the mix here. He's been injured for so long. He's starting 5-on-5 practice as of 4 days ago. So if he somehow mixes into all this, then I have no idea what to expect with them. But I wouldn't count on that for the Bulls and wouldn't really factor that in. But I think it's just an interesting tidbit. So, yeah, I just think the direction they're going tells me that that's why this line is so low, and that's why I think, the 27.5, it does feel low, but I think there's a reason for that.
Yeah, it's just debatable on if it's really they're going rebuild or not, because the Caruso trade, they didn't get any picks back. Like I spoke to the Raptors about the same thing with Siakam. But, in DeRozan, they kind of just let walk for nothing. So maybe they just believe, there's a world where they just believe in like their guards and like the development of Dosunmu and Kobe White and now Levine. So they just have too many like offensive like personalities there in White and in
Mm-hmm.
Levine. So maybe they just didn't need DeRozan. They thought they would go a little bit younger, but still potentially, try to fight for a play. They just feel like a team that never really wants to throw in the towel, in my opinion.
That,
But I think they
yeah,
should.
yeah.
I just don't know if they will.
You actually just made me think of another point. Losing Caruso, where are they going for defense on this team now? When you
To
think
some
about that lineup, I know he's definitely good. Buzelis actually has looked good, even from like a stocks perspective. He looks like he could be a guy for them, but he is pretty skinny. Still raw and undersized. I don't think Giddy's that guy for them. So I don't know. I think that and DeRozan has always been a solid defender. Not great, but not terrible. So I think you lose some defensive identity as well with those losses that we haven't really talked about yet.
And
yeah, that's fair. I would just rebuttal and say Patrick Williams is kind of a good defender, and
Yep.
the Summit would be those guys.
Yep, that's fair.
And yeah, like Caruso was their highest 3-point shooter in percentage last year, and it feels like DeMar and Caruso were kind of like the leaders, whether like vocal or through their play. Like that was kind of their identity. They were grinders, they were competitors, and now it's like, what do they really have? Like I think it's going to be a fun year for them, but Vegas always knows more than we do. Like they know that Levine's contract is pretty untradeable. So looks like he's going to be sticking around. Maybe they trade Luch. They probably won't really get a lot in return. So it's like, I don't know. I think they're going to put up points maybe, but just be bad and like be fun. And they have like Julian Phillips kind of has been okay. Like he's kind of a guy to watch in their rebuild. Like, is he going to be part of their future? I don't know. They just have a lot of pieces in the line. I think the fact that the line doesn't make that much sense, like that makes me lean the under. Also, don't want to overthink it. I don't really know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. And we can move on to the team with the worst record in the NBA last season, the Detroit Pistons, whose over-under is set 11.5 more wins than they had last season at 25.5. Where did you guys fall on the Pistons?
Okay.
Over sweep.
Oh, the sweep. I was trying to bait you guys with that little speech there. All right. Laugh. Why did you go over on the Pistons?
Yeah, so Pistons are another one of my favorites, honestly. And this is one of the few teams in that bottom of the East I was talking about where I actually think they're going to make somewhat of a push this year. And one of the reasons for that, obviously, they could benefit from Cooper Flag and anyone like at the top of that draft, just like anyone else. But they have so many young depth pieces where I think they're at a point they need to start putting in the chips to actually be good, and they've made some moves in that regard. They've went in on Tobias Harris. I think he adds some better leadership for them. He adds shooting for them, and he also, as much hate as he's gotten over the years, been a consistently good scorer in the NBA for a long time. And I think having more chance to do that on a team like the Pistons, they could actually thrive in a role like that. So I like the ad there. They've added additional shooting around them, which they desperately lacked last year, and I think was a big reason they struggled. I really like the idea that they can develop more of the young players. They got a new coach, Bickerstaff. Yeah, so I liked what Bickerstaff did with Cleveland, and I think he can do a good job developing some of their younger guys on the Pistons, especially their bigs. Jalen Duren. Duren's super raw, still extremely talented, double-double machine. They just have so many guys that I think they can make it work, but it will be interesting to see how they make lineup decisions, how they all fit together. So I think that's still the biggest question mark. But I just really like the direction they're moving, and I think they can develop a lot of their young talent into being more real players. One last thing on them, I was a big Pistons watcher just from having Asar Thompson on my fantasy team, and while they were on that losing streak as a betting aficionado, they're covering almost every game. It was unbelievable. They were in so many close games, and their line was like 15, 16 points, because they were just, they're getting they're one of the worst teams in the league. But they were making every game close. They're making every game fun. And I think that it's overlooked with how bad the record was, where the beginning of that season, people were looking at them as one of those young up and coming teams that could make a push, and I just think we're a year early on it, and I think this is the year, and that's why again, same with the Raptors being so low. I think this line being so much higher is respective of that, and I think their line opened at 22.5, if I'm not mistaken, when the lines came out like a month ago or so. So moving up 3 wins is pretty significant. But the better in me, I don't like to go against the market on something that drastic of a change. So yeah, I like the over here.
I saw at least 24.5 at the beginning for sure. I don't know if it was as low as 23.5, but yeah. Marco, do you want to touch on the Pistons?
Do you want to guess the last time they have had over 25 wins in the season?
Oh God. Maybe like Blake Griffin era. No,
I was gonna say 2018.
2019.
2016. Oh, wow.
That's
right.
pretty. So they've been just consistently bad. Yeah. And yeah, I kind of believe in Cade. I think he's, like you said, he was kind of dragging them to some tight losses last year. Like their record was terrible, but I think the shooting's improved. Like Fontecchio, sneaky sniper. Obviously, they added Beasley, Hardaway, who's streaky. Tobias, feeling less pressure. Like they have a good roster. Paul Reed was kind of disappointing last year, but I just think they're another team. I mean, I've kind of had the same theme with them, the Hornets and the Raptors. Like I'm falling for their talent, which is maybe stupid, but I don't know. I feel like they could. Like 26 wins is still pretty bad. Like they can be bad and hit this over. I think they'll be in the mix for the plan. And yeah, like the next 2 teams, the Wizards and the Nets, I think are going to be way worse. So hopefully they can kind of jump up from that bottom tier.
Yeah, it's just the lack of shooting last year was such a huge issue for them. You had guys like Asar shooting in the teens from 3% wise. They just didn't, like Ivy was awful from 3 last year as well. They really struggled, and just bringing in Malik Beasley, bringing in Tobias Harris, bringing in Tim Hardaway Jr., bringing in guys that can actually shoot the rock and just give Cade some options to pass to, not be super clunky on offense. They have enough talent now. Like they can give different looks with Asar. They can give different looks with Ron Holland, who's an athletic freak. Paul Reed, who's like, a very energetic backup big behind Duren, who's also just another year older, another year more developed as Cade is, as Ivy is. I'm not really super high on Ivy, but, I don't know if that backcourt pairing is the pairing to go with. Maybe Ivy comes off the bench. Maybe they start Beasley. We'll see which route they go. But I believe in Bickerstaff. He got a lot out of that Cavs team last year who was super banged up. I think he'll bring this team closer to the 30-win mark. So I'm pretty clearly over on this as well, like you guys said. And then we have the Washington Wizards, whose over-under is set at 21.5 for next season. Where'd you guys fall on the Wizards?
Wow.
Justin.
Oh, it's me on an island. Okay, well, the Wizards. The Wizards are an interesting one because I just felt like the number was so low, and they're a young team as well with Sarr coming in. I just believe in Sarr defensively. Like he can start right away, and he's kind of an interesting option next to JV there. And I like JV as like a real NBA 5, and I just feel like they're a little too good to be at 21.5. Kuzma, you got Kuzma who's very solid. Bub Carrington is going to come in and bring a lot of energy as a rookie. They also have Malcolm Brogdon who's sneaky really good. He was provided a lot for the Blazers last season. I love Koulibaly defensively. He just brings so much length and size. Him and Sarr is extremely defensive and scary pairing there. Kispert brings a lot of offense off the bench. They just have a lot of guys, and the number just felt too low. I'm not the highest on the Wizards, and I said in a previous podcast that I thought that they would start 3 guys under the age of 20 by the time January 1st rolled around. So, they could definitely go that direction, but I just like them a lot better than some of the other teams, maybe in particular the Brooklyn Nets, who we'll talk about next. But I see them, it's very marginally over. It's not that sharp of a read for me.
Honestly, this was on the fence for me. I like the Wizards a lot, and I like a lot of their young pieces. So you might have convinced me there on being leaning more on the over than the under. Really, this came down to me as just they're a clear tank team that could really benefit from Cooper Flag being their core piece that they desperately need. They really don't have that star player yet. I don't see Sar being that guy. Um, Not that I like his prospect a lot. He just seems like more of a fit piece than necessarily like a star player, and that's just kind of how this draft was. So, yeah, no, I think you made a lot of good points. I think the Brogdon addition is interesting too. I think he's a great person to bring in there to help develop some of their younger players. So yeah, I definitely like that take. But yeah, I think it really comes down to are they going to tank or not, and I think they clearly have the roster to do so. It just you can have 23, 24 wins and still have a very good chance of that top pick. So
Right.
could easily see them hitting the over here.
Yeah. I've kind of been closely following the Wizards the past couple of years. Not for any particular reason. I always kind of liked them. I liked the Gilbert Arenas era. I liked Antoine Jamerson. I liked Beal, Porzingis. They're kind of like so distant from being a Celtic. They're like the Magic. I kind of like the Wizards. I don't know why. And it seems like they've been sort of in that Bulls land of being that chronic middle of the road team that never gets a good draft pick, but never really can win a playoff series. And I think they've really done a direction change. And I think all of their moves have been focused on rebuilding. And even like some of the guys that they took flyers on, and I don't think they're on the team still, but guys like Ryan Rollins, like they've taken flyers on guys. They're going for like these prospects. I think they trade one of like Kispert, Kuzma, Poole. I think some of these guys are going to be gone. Like I like Brogdon, but yeah, he was like the Trailblazers had 21 wins last year. Like he's probably not going to play a lot. I think he's a good vet to have. But they lost Denny. They didn't re-sign Tyus Jones. And a fun fact, I didn't know this, but their head coach Brian Keefe was on OKC before, and he was in charge of the development of Shea, which is kind of cool. Like he's like a real coach, and I think when a team is this bad and they have a lot of just random moves being done, and they keep their first time head coach, like I think he's in on the plan. I think that he's the guy they want to just like have shit years. Sorry for swearing. This is the first swear of the episode, but like
Got to title it explicit on Spotify.
I think when teams keep their random coaches, like they're gonna have like a 17 win year. Just to me, this is all the way tank commander. These guys, and yeah, we'll see how like Sadiq Bey fits in. I like Jonas too, Valanciunas, but yeah, to me they're like an obvious tank team, and get a stud alongside Bilal and Bub and Sar, and that's not a terrible core.
Yeah. Unless you guys have anything to add, we can move on to the Brooklyn Nets. Okay. So the final team on our Eastern Conference list here is the Brooklyn Nets, whose over-under is set at 19.5, under 20 wins for next season. Where did you guys fall on the Brooklyn Nets?
Oh, yeah.
Gotta end with it under sweep.
The sweep. All right, Marco, why don't you kick it off here with the Nets? Why'd you go under?
Kind of similar thing with the Wizards, like a team that historically has not been terrible, not in the mix for the top pick. I think they're taking it all down. They want Cooper Flag. If they want to attract a star down the road, they're going to want these like cheap rookie contracts for good young guys. Like they don't have a lot of great young guys. I kind of like Noah Clowney, but yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what they do with like Bojan and Simmons and Cam Johnson, Dorian Finney-Smith. They have so many guys. Dennis Schroeder, but I think Vegas knows the direction they're going. Like 19.5 over under with all those guys on their roster is pretty bad. And I think we're going to see a lot of Cam Thomas 40-point nights. I think we're going to see a lot of just ugly games, but that's good. That's what they need, and they have a few picks in the next draft, so I think it's a positive under for me.
Yeah, I mean, the big thing for me was them getting that 2025 pick back from the Suns. As soon as they made that move, it was very clear what the direction they're going, and then they got obviously offloaded Bridges, got a bunch of picks back for that. So it's been very clear with their roster moves what direction they're going. I think they're far and away the clearest tank team in the league. I think they have the least amount of positive young prospects, to your point, Marco. So I just think this is as clear of a tanking roster as you can get. So yeah, definitely leaning under here, even at such a low line. I just don't see them wanting to win this year.
I'm with you there. It's weird. Like the number seems so low where it's tempting to go over on it, but at the same time, Marks has been a guy who's been so clear in which direction he's going. When he traded for KD and he had Kyrie and Harden, they went all in, and now they're finally realizing that all the pieces they got back, slowly moving KD away and being like, what, we can try, and they're like finally realizing that this is the year to sell. So they sold everyone. They got their own pick back. They control their destiny now. There's no reason why they're not going to throw the season in the tanker, is how I feel about it. And they just don't have the talent there. They have no real star power. Like Cam Thomas is going to be shooting a bunch, but like other than that, like how much talent do they really have? They feel like the most barren roster in the East, maybe the whole NBA. So I definitely fall, as you guys said, on the under here.
We could see a lot of Killian Hayes big nights.
Yeah, I know. I think Noah Clowney is kind of a sneaky good piece too. I feel like they're the real first team that I think will be in the Cooper Flag mix, like firmly though.
Yeah, and I think it's nice that the bad teams, like at least they're doing something. Like I think that's they're trading guys away, they're accumulating picks. Like I think they're tanking gracefully.
Do you like the Wizards, for example, like going after like a Brogdon or a Valanciunas, like getting these vets in to mentor young guys? Or do you think you just throw it in the tanker and just like try to play all the young guys as much as possible?
I don't know how much of it is just trying to get to like the salary cap floor. Like if they're just going to have these chunky contracts and then have them play like 50, 40 games, like I don't know how much of it's that and then trying to just have a good vet presence. I think I like Valanciunas. I like Brogdon and Valanciunas as like pros just to have and like let them put up some numbers. But yeah, I don't know. It's pretty impossible to like only play super young bad guys without having no contracts.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of the Nets right now. Like, who are they paying?
Simmons.
They don't have.
It's Simmons. Yeah,
$1 trillion.
It's like all of their money is to Simmons. I think Claxton got a pretty big extension too. I don't know if he's on it yet though, so it might not even reflect. But, and who are your two? Maybe just give like two or three of your favorites from the list from what you picked.
Yeah, so like I said, I think my favorite is definitely the Atlanta Hawks over 35.5 in the East, and then the Pistons over 25.5 are my two favorites. I think I leaned under more than over, probably for the majority of this podcast, but definitely going two overs as my favorites there.
And Marco, what about you?
Well, honestly, I like all my picks, but if I had to pick two, I would go. I like the Cavs over 47.5. I think they're. Yeah, I see them taking steps forward and improving on last year and being higher up than maybe the line suggesting. And then I like the Heat over too, 44.5. It's kind of boring to go two overs too, but those to me, I don't really want to mess with the bottom teams. But yeah, I would say Heat and Cavs over. I like.
Just to give a couple different ones, like I would have also went with you guys on Hawks and probably Cavs too, but two of my other favorites would be 76ers under. I think I think we all lean that way, and then the Magic obviously got a rep. I think they'll go pretty firmly over the 47.5 there. But yeah, I agree with you guys on the Cavaliers for sure. We can wrap there unless you guys have anything else to add.
No, I think we're good.
Yeah, went a little long with this one, but it was fun.
I think it was a good conversation, though.
Yeah, we'll get to the
Learned a lot
West
from you
Conference.
guys.
Yeah, me too. We'll get to the Western Conference another time. So I just want to thank everyone for tuning in to the podcast today. It's been a really fun one. My name is Justin Coleman. I was joined by my co-host Marco Amendola and Matt Lafferty. We had a great time talking basketball with you all. If you all could please do us a favor and like the video and subscribe to the channel, it would mean a lot to us as we're trying to grow. We got 20 subscribers. Finally hit a milestone, which is pretty huge for us. It was really fun. So thanks to you both for joining us. Take care.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Guys.